This is Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia and home to over 10 million people. It's overcrowded, polluted, and it's literally sinking into the ocean. And this is Nusantara, the future capital city, opening later this year with construction already in full swing. Nusantara isn't ready just yet, but it promises to be a smart forest city. With a price tag of an estimated $33 billion, it's supposed to be a high-tech metropolis, powered by renewables and perfectly blending in with the surrounding environment. In today's video, we're going to look at how Southeast Asia's biggest country is planning to carve out a brand new megacity right from the jungle, and why this is not only beneficial, but also problematic. Just a quick reminder, in 7 days, we're changing our name from Top Luxury to MegaBuilds. Indonesia's newest city doesn't look like much yet, but it's gonna be a game changer. On a site 4 times bigger than Jakarta and 40 times bigger than Manhattan, construction is underway on the first of 5 phases, all of which are due to be completed by 2045. It might seem enormous, especially because it's only being built for less than 2 million people. But that's because 65% of the city is going to be green space, with forests, gardens, and parks. Another 10% of the city will be taken up by farming, meaning that only 1/4 of Nusantara will be covered in buildings. This is all part of Indonesia's target to be carbon neutral by 2060, and Nusantara is a big part of that. It'll be powered entirely by renewables, and 80% of journeys within the city will be by public transport, walking, or cycling. Thanks to a smart public transport system, you're supposed to reach everything you need, like shops, restaurants, and so on, within 10 minutes, no matter where you live. And the urban rainforests that weave through the city will make Nusantara feel more like something out of Avatar than real life. If the plans are anything to go by, living here doesn't look too bad. At first glance, Nusantara looks like a paradise, perhaps even too good to be true. So to understand it properly, let's zoom out for a second and look at why exactly it's being built in the first place. Indonesia is an island nation, otherwise known as an archipelago. In fact, it's actually the biggest archipelago in the world, with over 17,000 individual islands. Since the 1600s, the capital city has been here, on the north coast of the island of Java. But Jakarta was never built to house the 10 million people that live there today. 13 separate rivers run through Jakarta, and flooding is a massive problem. This is made even worse by poor water management. A large percentage of the population relies on groundwater, which also comes from wells. These wells draw water from far below the city, weakening the earth and causing the ground to shift underfoot. As a result, Jakarta is actually sinking into the ocean. The speed varies, but some neighborhoods sink as many as 11 inches a year, making it the fastest sinking city in the world. In fact, 40% of Jakarta is already below sea level. And with oceans set to continue rising, Jakarta has a major problem on its hands. Given this whole situation, Indonesia decided to build a new capital city, over 700 miles away, right in the middle of the jungle. This is the island of Borneo. It's the 3rd largest island on the planet, and it's covered by a massive rainforest. The island is split between Malaysia and Brunei in the north and Indonesia in the south. And over here, in a region called East Kalimantan, is where Nusantara is being built. But why here? Well, the location is actually more central to Indonesia. This should allow better connectivity between the government and the many parts of the country. At the same time, it'll also redistribute resources and people away from the island of Java, which currently makes up over 60% of the national economy. East Kalimantan is also better protected from natural disasters like floods and earthquakes that affect much of the country. On top of that, the rainforest offers an enormous amount of natural resources, as well as the natural beauty and biodiversity. There's also just a lot more space, something that's severely lacking in Jakarta. It's been overcrowded and sinking for decades now, which might make you wonder, why has it taken so long to start this process? Well, the idea of moving the capital isn't actually a new one. It was first discussed way back in the 1950s, but no one was prepared to push for it as much as the current president, Joko Widodo. Widodo, who was a furniture maker before getting into politics, became the governor of Jakarta in 2012. But it wasn't until he was elected president in 2014 that he could really make progress on his dream of a new Indonesian capital. Finally, in 2019, he officially announced the plan to relocate. So what is the vision for this new capital? 300 different companies actually submitted designs for Nusantara, but it was an Indonesian architecture and design firm, Urban Plus, who were eventually selected to design the majority of the city. Their vision: to create a city that works with the natural environment rather than against it. A smart urban landscape that captures the biodiversity of Indonesia, as well as its rich cultural heritage. Nusantara actually means archipelago, and a look around the city clearly shows how the designers have tried to capture the identity of the island nation. So let's take a look at some design details. Elevated walkways will provide links between transport hubs, allowing residents to access the fully electric public transport system and avoid the hilly jungle terrain. These walkways, along with some of the buildings that are on stilts, will allow better airflow and rainwater dispersal throughout the city. It sounds rather elaborate to put buildings on stilts, but this is nothing new in Indonesia. Many homes are raised above the ground to protect them from flooding, and the same technique is used here in Nusantara as well. And that's not all. At the heart of the city is the Presidential Palace. This unique masterpiece will be in the shape of Garuda, a mythical bird and the national symbol of Indonesia. There's also a huge statue of it in Bali, which we've already featured in our video about the world's tallest statues. The Garuda represents knowledge, power, and bravery, and its giant glass wingspan will stretch out for 177 meters as it towers above Nusantara. Along this long straight road through the middle of the city, it'll certainly stand out. Then there's the Vice Presidential Palace, which was actually designed as part of an open competition run by the government, with the winning design coming from a company called Shao. Despite its more modern appearance, the design was actually selected thanks to its connection with indigenous Indonesian architecture. It's based on a classic building known as a longhouse and uses traditional design features that split the building into 3 separate parts. All these renders show that the plan for the city is to integrate it into nature and preserve many green spaces. And that's definitely an advantage compared to many existing cities. They can allocate the space entirely from scratch. For a city of this size, it would definitely be a new approach if Indonesia is actually able to build it. So how exactly do they plan to realize this massive undertaking? The project has been split into 5 phases, and construction is already underway, though the deadlines are pretty tight. As we will see, certain areas such as the governmental zone will take priority, and infrastructure will be upgraded as the city grows, in line with the later phases. The first and perhaps the most ambitious phase has a timeline of only 2 years, and is scheduled to be finished later this year. President Widodo, who leaves office in October, has made Nusantara his legacy and plans to officially inaugurate the city with the opening of the Presidential Palace on Indonesian Independence Day, August 17th. In the first phase, the governmental zone is being carved out of the jungle. On top of that, all the very basic infrastructure needs to be put in place before anyone can actually move in. That means roads, electricity, and water supply, as well as a core public transport system. During phase 1, the focus is on the so-called governmental zone, made up of government offices, the palaces, and buildings for branches of the army and police. The next phases of construction will have a little bit more time to come together, with 4 to 5 years planned for each separate stage. Phase 2 will see big developments in what's called mixed-use areas, and is scheduled to be finished later this year. This means that areas will be developed for industry and business, as well as educational institutions, food, and retail. By the end of this phase in 2029, the government plans for 1.2 million people to have relocated to Nusantara. Kinda hard to believe when you look at the building site that's standing there today. In only 5 years, 1.2 million people are gonna live here? Do you even think that's possible? Phase 3, starting in 2030, will see the development of a mass transportation system, as well as the expansion of waste and water management projects, and a focus on the economic development of local businesses. Regional railway networks will be laid as part of Phase 4, as well as an extension of education and health services due to the projected population increase. The final phase of construction, due for completion in time for the 100th anniversary of Indonesian independence in 2045, will involve more industrial development and a focus on stable population growth, with a planned 1.9 million residents. That's if everything goes to plan though. With only a few months to go until the official opening, it's already being talked about that meeting the deadlines might be tough. construction has been slower than planned due to severe tropical weather and supply chain issues. Gathering all the necessary resources to build a city from scratch isn't easy, especially in this jungle location. And this is where the multiple issues arise. If you enjoyed this video so far, do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate it, and thanks for your support. So let's take a look at the 4 major points of criticism and problems. Firstly, there have been a lot of illegal mining operations in this area. East Kalimantan has enormous reserves of natural resources like coal, oil, nickel, and gold. According to surveys from the Environment and Forestry Minister Siti Nurbaya Bakar, there are around 2,400 abandoned mines on the site of Nusantara alone. In order to continue construction, these pits need to be refilled, and although this should be done by the mining companies, the government is now largely paying for it. Secondly, funding also appears to be a big challenge. 20% of the $33 billion budget is coming from the Indonesian state, but the remaining 80% is supposed to be financed through domestic and foreign investments. But this is proving quite difficult. A big Japanese investor pulled out in 2022 as they could no longer agree on the investment conditions. And despite Indonesia offering tax breaks and land rights to potential investors, it seems like no major investment has been signed. As of 2023, the government said they had received letters of intent from 323 mostly Asian investors. Also, Australia has formally signed on with a relatively small investment and the offer of expert technicians to help with development. Thirdly, critics within the Indonesian population say that the plans have been rushed through parliament without proper oversight, and that President Widodo rushes to open the city before he leaves office. The Indigenous Peoples Alliance of Nusantara, also called AMAN, advocates for the rights of indigenous peoples. In a report, they said that 21 indigenous communities live on the site of Nusantara, and they estimated that at least 20,000 indigenous people would have to be displaced. So solutions still need to be found to further integrate the locals into the project. Of course, the developers are in talks, but this topic needs more attention. Many people think that the government has been pushing ahead without properly considering, consulting, or even informing local residents. And lastly, some call into question the green credentials of Nusantara. While it is planned to operate with clean energy, only 19% of Indonesian power is currently generated by renewables. That means that the enormous coal mines in Borneo will be used to power the construction of this green utopia, and the resulting impact on the local environment may well be extreme. To conclude, we can say that the road ahead is not clear for Nusantara. In regard to the problems in Jakarta, it's obvious that something needs to be done. However, it remains to be seen whether this new plan is the best option. And that's why we want to hear your opinions on this. What do you think? Is Nusantara a good situation for Indonesia's current situation? And will their plans work out? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.